Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. As the weather gets nicer, you're going to want to spend some time on an area lake or river. Madisonville Marine has the best selection and best prices on boats anywhere in East Tennessee. Heck, from Georgia to Nashville, basically. But production in terms of the boat companies this year, it's behind. So you need to get in line now. If you want a boat for this year, get down to Madisonville Marine this week. You know where Bob Hodge is today? He's on his Madisonville Marine boat out on the lake. You could be too. Just get down to Madisonville Marine. Okay. Going to be a quick segment here. This week, Seth Davis of CBS and The Athletic posted his list for 10 hoops programs that are rising and falling. He had lots of blue bloods that are on the way down. Duke, because Krzyzewski's age. Kansas, because they're about to get NCAA bombed, possibly. Kentucky, because they may have to change their one-and-done routine. So those are the ones on the way down. I wanted to see who he had on the way up. In the SEC, there were two, Alabama and Arkansas. Alabama, because Nate Oates has flipped them quickly. Nate Oates, who was hired at Buffalo by Danny White, by the way, which is an interesting thing when now he's got Rick Barnes. So this leads into our question. He hired Nate Oates, who's very much into the analytics thing. The NBA basically believes in dunks, layups, and three-point shots. Anything in between? No. Nate Oates has done that at Alabama. He actually practices with deep threes are worth 4, threes are worth 3, anything in under the bucket is worth 2. All those shots that Tennessee lives with, they're worth 1 because they're the most inefficient shot in college basketball. So my question to you guys, that's where the trend is going. You may disagree that that's where it is long term, but should Tennessee start to get in line? You look at Alabama was number 1 in the SEC this year in threes. Arkansas was number 3 in threes. We know what Bruce Pearl did at Auburn a couple of years ago, shooting all the threes. Does Rick Barnes need to get more in line with the analytics and cut down some of the mid-range jumper stuff that Tennessee leads the nation in, basically? Top 10 in the nation in mid-range jumpers. Well, anyone?
To me, a mid-range jump shot is a challenging, oftentimes most contested shot. So I'm all for it's either threes or get to the paint and shoot twos. NBA analytics, I mean, NBA analytics gives it a bad taste because of the way that NBA is known for not competing during the regular season. But I'm all for either wide open threes or getting to the rim and finishing at the rim as opposed to mid-range jump shots.
To kind of pick off what Marcus said, the NBA analytics, it kind of does skew the college game, I think, because you have certain kind of athletes in the NBA than you do in college. And do you have more confident players in the NBA with more freedom than you do in college? And so, therefore, it puts a different kind of strain or lens on the game. At least for me, it does. Yeah. I'm not too into analytics. I'm more player based. You know, I'm gonna use what I got to my advantage. So if I have shooters, I'm going to play more into what my shooters do. Right. If I have big guys like me and Stokes was on the floor, we're going to do what we do. And so I think you have to utilize what you have in order to take advantage of the game. You can't, say analytics is this way and this team plays this way, so we're going to play the same. You'll get blew out that way. And I think you have to play with what you have.
Well, Jerron said the key thing, shooters. And I think that's where the adjustment needs to come into play. It's not in changing to what Alabama's doing. By the way, we haven't seen them have success in the NCAA tournament, see if that can carry over. However, I think they need to recruit more pure shooters. And that way you can do what Mark's talked about, spreading the floor a little bit more. They don't have threats on the three-point perimeter with any regularity right now. So I think the adjustment to more shooters as opposed to trying to develop that when they get here, that's where the adjustment needs to come, not in changing totally the way they play like in analytics. And by the way, in the NBA, the Nuggets had a 4-on-1 down 2 and then shot a three-pointer with Michael Porter scoring to the three-point line in the corner instead of going to the basket on a 4-on-1. So it can have some drawbacks also.
I think analytics has ruined baseball because now everything's a strikeout or a home run. The base hit is just awful. No one wants a base hit. It's like poison. I don't like baseball anymore for that reason. I'm afraid that basketball is going in the direction to where it's either a dunk or a three, and there's nothing in between. But at the same time, that does seem to be where the sport's going. And when you simply look at the efficiency of easier buckets versus points that you get in return for them, it makes sense to do it. I just think it's interesting. I'm not saying Rick Barnes is in any trouble with Danny White. Or that's not anywhere in the realm of possibility. But I will point out again that Danny White hired Nate Oates, a guy who went in and said, well, here's my belief, and it tied into this kind of a system. I think that's one to watch, that White liked that kind of guy in Nate Oates.
I think when you have a guy who's more prone or steered towards analytics and he believes in it, I think that's the biggest thing, what makes coaches successful. You have to believe in that type of system in order to get your guys to believe it. If you don't believe it and you don't breathe it into them the same way that you breathe it into your other coaches, it'll fail, because you need those guys to take timely, smart shots and not do things like in the Denver instance where it's an obvious play. You tie the game, we go into overtime. But if you're taught one thing and you're not taught anything else, without the belief system behind it, ultimately it's faulty.
Okay.
Hey, real quick, Mike White, let's just get football right. Let's just get the football program back to where it should be, and basketball's taking care of itself.
I'm not suggesting he won't. I'm not suggesting he's going to make a move. Just pointing out, in terms of analytics, he liked a guy who was analytical. All right, when we come back, let's talk about keys for Tennessee today. How do they beat Florida? How do they reverse the beatdown they took at Gainesville? The number 4 seed is on the line. How do they grab it? Come on back on the Sports.